Good day, everyone. Hello, hello. My name is Wendy Richmond, and I am here to talk to you about the 5 marketing gaps nearly every dental practice has and how to fix them. Okay, we are going to dig in. And, just wanted to, before we get started, my name again is Wendy Richmond, and I'm excited to speak with you all today about some modern growth capabilities that most local dental practices are currently overlooking, which results in money left on the table. Absolutely. I wanted to give you a little bit about my background before we dig in. I have been a dental marketer and in the dental industry for the last 15 years. I've been a successful marketing director for several multi-million dollar dental practices over that time. And, over time, the roadmap to online success for a dental practice has become pretty clear. Okay. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, practices that successfully leverage online marketing, here's what they are. Number one, they consistently generating new leads. And the lead is just a person who raises their hand, a potential patient raises their hand that they are interested and they found you by some kind of advertising and they are interested in learning more about your services. And so that is considered a lead. Okay. Number two is they consistently nurture those leads via conversations and automated messaging into a booked appointment. Okay. Number three is they consistently are turning conversations into bookings, into sales. Okay. So they know how to close. And then number four, they consistently are turning new sales into new online reviews, right? Reviews is a big piece of this puzzle. And number five, they're consistently reactivating existing patients into repeat patients and repeat buyers. Okay. Sounds easy enough, right? But most practices are not consistently hitting the mark in each of these layers of the pipeline. So if you look right here, it's a funnel. It's a pipeline of, when somebody first finds out about your practice, they're kind of at the top, they learn about you, then they raise their hand because you've, interested them by your advertising. And then they kind of go down the funnel until they come into the office, they accept treatment, they give you a review, they come back and they tell more people about your office. Okay, so let's dive into each and talk about some specific ways to ensure your practice is consistently capitalizing on each of these stages. Excuse me, on each of these stages. All right. Now, when it comes to consistently generating more leads, all right. Now, remember, a lead was someone who they might have come in through your website. They might have picked up the phone. You might have done a Facebook ad or a Google ad or something like that. So most of us immediately think of ads, right, as the solve. So when it comes to consistently generating more, it's always about, oh, let's do some ads. Now, don't get me wrong, paid ads can be highly effective. And if you have the budget, you should definitely be running ads. But there are some other tactics and tools we can put in place to generate leads without having to spend on ads. Okay. Now, the first way to easily start generating more leads is to text enable your business, your practice. SMS is the most preferred method of communication by a long shot. Now, when someone receives an SMS, it's almost guaranteed to be opened. That's the cool thing about people and their cell phones today. By adding a simple message widget to your website, you can enable visitors that are already coming to your website to initiate a text message conversation that you can manage in a mobile app or on a computer without having to use your real mobile number. I mean, it's great because up until recently, these widgets have been live chat only, which have frustrated users because there's never anyone available on the other end. and they don't want to have to sit around forever on a website waiting for a reply. Now, with an SMS chat widget, the user is free to leave the site after they send the initial message because the conversation will continue on their phone. Practices are typically amazed by the amount of conversations that are generated as soon as they put this on their site. Okay, it's like this is a game changer right here. Now, once your practice is SMS capable, you'll be ready to fix an issue that is likely costing you a small fortune when it, which is really is called missed calls. Okay, now, statistically, the average local practice misses about 64% of all their inbound calls. Now, some of you might be thinking, there's no way we miss 64% of our calls. Fair enough. Well, let's assume that you're only missing 20%, and that equates to 10 missed calls per day. And that one of those 10 would have been a new patient that came in and accepted treatment. But the caller went on to dial your competitor. Do the math on how much that's costing you every day, every week, every month. Think about what happens after after hours, on the weekends, on holidays, right? And if your office is busy, calls get missed for sure. Well, the good news is that modern technology enables us to actually automate back a text message saying, "Sorry, we missed your call. How can we help?" to anyone who calls in but doesn't get an answer. Now, imagine how much money in lost revenue this one tactic would bring back. I mean, if you do the math, you will see this again is another one of these game changers. And if you don't have text messaging, text back, this is something to definitely implement. Okay. Now, one last way to generate leads without paid ads is online listings. Now, this one does have a recurring cost, but it can be pretty much powerful. It can be pretty powerful because having your practice listed correctly across the top directories around the internet correlates pretty strongly with business that tend to rank well and practices that tend to rank well in search results. And that makes sense because Google loves to see consistency, so it has to choose between a practice whose phone number and hours are different across all three directories and a practice whose info is the same across 100 directories, right? Which do you think it will recommend? So with listings, your input, right? With the listings, you can input all your practices, important information like the name of the office, address, phone number, etc., and have that information automatically published across all top directories around the web, nearly 100 in total. Listings then locks that data so no third party can change it, which is pretty common. It leads to inconsistencies over time. And it's hard to get someone to claim your offer if they don't even know you exist. And listings can be a great way to get yourself in front of a lot more people online. Now, when it comes to nurturing leads, right, into sales or into your office, into appointments, and then ultimately accepting treatment, the number one issue local practices face is speed. Studies show that there's basically a 5-minute shot clock. So if you can get a new lead to engage within 5 minutes, the odds of closing that lead skyrocket. Now, the problem is most practices are too busy with their day to day operations to reply that quickly. So, one thing that helps with this is having your lead channels, right? All of the different ways that you bring in new patients into a consolidated mobile app so you can reply quickly to everything in one place whenever your pocket buzzes. So now with a consolidated mobile communication stream, it's not just one person who's receiving the new leads, as you can have team members all working out of the same inbox. But you can also leverage some really handy features, which we'll cover in the next two slides. So, the first tool is called snippets. Now, what snippets allow you to create predefined messages and save them so that anyone on your team can quickly drop a curated response into a conversation. So they save a ton of time, as you and your staff no longer have to type out the same answers to questions you get asked over and over again, and they ensure that everyone on your team is giving the same exact response that you want delivered. Pretty cool, huh? All right. Now, another incredibly powerful nurture tool that most small practices or large practices are not leveraging is video messaging. Look, this is like a secret. This is the secret sauce that I tell you, if you can implement this into your practice when new leads come in, OMG, you are going to have a amazing rate of your bookings increase by just doing this one tactic. Okay, so video messages allow you to quickly record a video. The video gets uploaded into the cloud, and then a link to the video plus a preview gets dropped into the conversation ready to be sent. Now, imagine how much more business you would close if you and your staff were sending personalized hello videos to new leads. Pretty crazy, okay? But it can be done with today's technology for sure. All right. Well, now that we've talked about a few ways, okay, to quickly like take payments, let's talk about how you should happen. Well, actually, we didn't talk about taking payments because you don't really need to take payments, but you can. There's actually technology out to take payments before somebody comes in. If you have like a high no-show rate, for example, and you want to be able to charge for that consultation, you can actually do that in fast time. But most practices focus all their attention on getting the sale, right? And they don't have a system or process in place to take the next step, which is turning that patient into a review. Now, listen up, okay? Generating a consistent flow of new reviews is crucial to a practice growth for several reasons, okay? A steady stream of positive reviews correlates very strongly with better rankings in local search results. And the large majority of consumers look at reviews before making a decision about who to do business with. Okay. So the more reviews you generate, the more visibility you get from Google. And on top of that, you start converting more of that traffic from Google because people like your reviews. So it creates a flywheel effect where you can just gain more and more momentum. The problem is most practices don't have a system in place to easily generate reviews consistently. Now, a feature called review requests, though, we can pre-program a message requesting a review that links directly to the review panel in Google that can be shot out with just a few taps. In a lot of cases, this can even be automated to fire off after somebody accepts treatment or after an appointment. Now, another big opportunity that's typically missed by practices when it comes to reviews is the act of simply replying. Okay. As you can see, the stats are around review replies are crazy. But the truth is, we like to see how a practice interacts with its patients, especially when the practice gets a bad review. And as crazy as it might sound, there's actually a bond that's created between a practice and a patient prospective new patient when the business, the practice takes time to reply to review. So it creates loyalty. Now, whether you do this manually in your Google My Business or Google Business profile, or you use an app like ours where you can do it right in the conversation stream, it's critical. Okay, it's critical that you consistently request, like number one, consistently request reviews, and number two, reply to every review as they come in. Not a week from now, not a day from now, but as quickly as they come in. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about what we call a database reactivation. This is a huge miss for dental practices. All right, my clients, we all do database reactivations, okay? Because we know that it's dramatically easier, it's dramatically easier and drastically cheaper to turn an existing lead into a repeat buyer or bring them in than it is to acquire a brand new customer, a new patient. Okay, so you have the leads, there's somewhere, right? If you don't, where can we find them within the people who have raised their hand? If you do any kind of advertising, you have people who, patients who no showed, you have, I mean, there's just so many different lists of people that we can reactivate to bring them back or bring them in initially to the practice or bring them back. Now, once you have a database in place, you then need a way to broadcast messages, stories, promotions, etc. Now, ideally, right, you have a nice visual email builder as well, like the one on the screen, okay, where you can easily drag and drop elements to design really visually appealing emails. Okay, the top, look, if you take nothing else, right, the top practices, especially practices that have, say, multiple offices across the country, if you do any kind of, like I've done this before, I've mystery shopped them so I could see what their process is. They have beautiful emails that they send out on a regular basis to people who schedule, people who don't show, and and the like. So here's something I want you to think about. Have you ever how many of you have ever tried Groupon? Okay, you know Groupon, right? It's probably, it probably didn't go so well, right? I mean, if you're a dental practice and you tried Groupon, so it's not fun to have to give a 50% discount and then give another 25% to Groupon. But when you consistently build your own database and you have the tools to activate it, you essentially have the power of Groupon, but you're keeping all the revenue. Woo! All right. So when you have a tool like ours, okay, you can even do reactivation campaigns with text messages. Remember, we talked so much before about texting and why that's so important, that people will answer a text or look at a text more than they will an email. That chat icon there on the screen is what we call a bulk action. Okay, that allows you to shoot a text message to a whole list of people at once, or you can drip a message out over time. It's very, very cool. Now, we talked about the open rates of text messages earlier. So, as you can imagine, an SMS activation campaigns are incredibly effective. You just have to make sure that you registered correctly with the carriers, registered the phone number, and that everyone on the text list has opted in, but we have a whole trust center that makes that process very, very easy. And the way you do your any kind of marketing and advertising, people will already opt in and say, yes, I'm interested in getting messages from this practice. Now, as I've mentioned a few times during this presentation, our software was designed to fill these gaps for practices, but you could piece this all together by tying a few different softwares together. Yeah, you could. So, what's important is to understand the funnel. Okay. So, here it is again. Okay. Now, practices that are thriving online, are consistently, so let's go through this again. They're consistently capturing more leads, they're nurturing those leads into appointments and bookings for appointments and ultimately sales coming into the office, turning those patients into positive reviews and then reactivating their database over and over again to generate more new patients and repeat buyers. Okay, people to come back again and again for your treatments. Okay, so to help you go back and make sure you've got these bases covered for your own practice, I put together a checklist that we actually use as an initial audit when we take on a new client. Okay. So take this back to your team. Okay. We'll make sure that if you're interested, all you have to do is just email me and I'll send you that checklist. We'll put the checklist actually here as well for you. And hopefully, it serves as a guide to help you plug some of those gaps that we talked about today. So I thank you so much for your time. Again, my name is Wendy Richmond and the CEO of Results Matter Dental Marketing. If you want to reach out to me, here's my email. We'd be more than happy to talk with you and do a free marketing audit where we can look at all these things for you, give you some recommendations, and help you grow even more in 2025. All right, you take care. Bye bye.